recording too, guys. So please accept the recording. So full-time grandfather for full-time dad. That's kind of where we all want to be at some point. Yes, no?
Young brother.
Yes.
I don't know. My mother-in-law has said on several occasions, she has so much fun being a grandmother. She just wished she could have skipped the middle step.
Yeah.
I have a magnet on my refrigerator that said if I knew grandchildren were this great, I would have had them first.
So Karen, while you have the floor, tell us briefly what you do.
Okay, so I'm Karen Shaw, your personal storyteller at Picture This Photo Books, where I tell your personal or professional stories through your photos. And so in doing everything wrong, I am going to read this. So in keeping with one niche, let's have a conversation as to what Picture This Photo Books can do for your business. Conversation is just a conversation. Picture This Photo Books make awesome gifts. They're whimsical, casual, or formal, and always uniquely you.
All right, thank you for that. And teacher Sharon, tell us what you do.
But you just said it. Well, I'm a teacher out here in Brazil. I've been working as a teacher for the last 14 years. So I've recently launched Be Fluent for Life. It's my website. I'm doing translation services. There's a lot of great things on the website. I want you guys to check it out. Tell me what you think because I created it by myself. I am doing my classes 100% online. So that's about it.
Good for you. Thanks for that. Matt, I haven't seen you a while, man, but we want to hear from you. Tell us what you do.
So my name is Matthew Hogenkamp. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I built and sold 2 companies in my 20s. I retired when I was 24 years old. My first
Wow.
company was a product company. We sold our licensing deal to PetSmart, a global pet company. My next one was a technology company. We helped Fiverr go global, if you know the company Fiverr. Now I'm running my 3rd company. We help other people build their businesses. I work with a team of serial entrepreneurs and startup experts. We've worked with over 1,600 startups globally. And our job is to take them from idea to market to growth to scale. And I'm absolutely in love with what I do. Get to meet brilliant people every day. And I'm looking forward to meeting and collaborating with everyone here.
Awesome. Awesome. Brian, tell us what you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Epstein. Just on a personal level, I'm originally from Nova Scotia, but I've lived in Ontario for many years. I am a coach, an accredited coach. I do coaching for people who want to make change, whether or not they have been promoted to a new role within their organization or they've been laid off from a job and they need some support to land back on their feet. So helping people to be successful in their careers and in their businesses.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Luz, where are you today?
I am in Colombia too.
You're still in Colombia. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us what you do.
Okay, guys, nice to meet you. My name is Luz. Now I am working in a spa in Canada. My principal role in that spa is promote the service of the spa. Also, I am doing the sales process, the sales marketing process, and also that spa is growing a lot. It's growing so fast. For that reason, I try to improve all the process inside in the spa. It's really nice. I'm gonna send you information. My information of our service. You can enjoy a delicious massage.
Awesome. And that spa is in Hamilton, Ontario.
It's in Hamilton, yes.
All right, good stuff. Lawrence, speak to us, please.
Good morning, everybody. Lawrence Fox, Accounting Wizard Solutions, and I am the usually bow tie wearing, but I don't have one that goes with this shirt. But I am the always fountain pen wielding online CPA, and I do bookkeeping and non-tax accounting for coaches, consultants, and creatives who'd rather have root canal than do their books. I don't do taxes. And if you want a dull, gray, or boring accountant, please don't call me. But I am the guy to call when you absolutely, positively hate doing the books.
Wow, you heard the man.
It gets better every time. Like,
Olive, it's a pleasure to see you.
You know,
Welcome.
somebody once heard that and says, hands down, that's the best damn introduction for an accountant I've ever heard in my entire life.
Good morning, everyone. Like Lawrence, I am a CPA and I do bookkeeping and also taxes. So I do personal taxes mostly. I work primarily with not-for-profit and small to medium-sized businesses.
Mhm.
And on top of that, I'm now an AI enthusiast. I'm doing my certification and I'm trying to combine my AI with my accounting business to take it to a new level. So that's where I am right now. And
Nice.
hopefully I'll finish the courses within the next few weeks.
Well, sounds like we have something to talk about there, young lady. Good.
Great. We can chat offline.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, I'm Dave. Leadership and personal development is what I do. The bottom line is to help you to get better because it is the same person who performs in different environments. So if you're better, you're going to be better everywhere you go. And that's the bottom line. That's what I do. But let's kick off the meeting. And Karen and I are going to go over some of the stuff that we've been through over the last 10 weeks with the presenters in this group. And then we're going to look to forge a better path forward. So Karen, you want to kick off for me?
Sure. So I found out that I'm one of 4 different kinds of introvert from Katrina Horn. I'm the restrained introvert. I'm the one who never makes a decision on a whim. I always have to think about it first. Even an argument, I will not have a fight with you. I'll go home and think about it and then come back. I learned we should work with only one niche from Jane Fung. I did know that, but she stressed its importance, and I find that extremely difficult, but I'm working on it. I also learned that I should not read my pitch as I'm reading this from Craig Colby. In my defense, I have a reason and a story for everything. And that's it. Dave, take it away.
Awesome. Very good. And for me, over the last 10 weeks, one of the things that touched me a lot is Elaine that came in because she had breast cancer and she was able to survive it, even though she's a rare kind of individual where when the toxin goes in her system, it poisons her body. There's no way to flush it out. But through research, she was able to find a way to get rid of it so that she's actually living today without cancer. However, that's a story about health, but that can be done for business as well, right? There is always a way that we can use to move forward in business. So Jane was also a big impact for me because most of the stuff is review, but one of the funny things she said, and I repeat it often, is if you don't have a niche, just throw something up in the air like a dart or something and pick one. But you need to have a niche. And that is something I struggle with. Matt could probably help a lot with this as well, because I get bored easily. However, I will stick to a niche once I know what the result is going to be. Because, like I said before, I'm the laziest, hardworking guy. I will do whatever it takes to get the success, even though I may not want to do it because I love success. Not work, but I love success. So that's the main thing that I gather. Of course, everyone touches me in a different way. Andrea, her thing was like, I'm taking over the meeting, I'm doing this long presentation, but there's one thing that you must get out of this, and it's to use Eventbrite. Because when you use Eventbrite, they're gonna send people your way, so you'll get to meet a whole bunch of new people. So those are some of the things that I feel impact me the most over the last, that I'm actually using and applying. to business now. All right. And so you guys can jump in anytime you want, but we'll go over the different individuals that did the presentation as well, so that you get an idea what they presented. So I don't know if you want to jump in at this point before we move on.
Well, Dave, you were saying, excuse me, about a niche.
Mm-hmm.
About 18 years ago, I changed the way I was doing things, what I was going to do for a living. So I went and studied web design, coding at Seneca College here in Toronto, which was a great place to learn, really practical and great. We had a guy come in and teach the business part of starting a business. And he had his PhD in werewolfism. Now that's pretty interesting. I mean, I was interested in that guy straight away. What a bizarre way to have a PhD in werewolfism. Anyway, he wasn't incredibly interesting actually, but excuse me, one of the things I do remember when he's talking about a niche is left-handed lesbians. Now, left-handed people are a minority group. Lesbians are a minority group. But if you've got left-handed lesbians, you've got a real minority group. And he said, don't forget about that minority within a minority, because you can do very, very well if you focus in a sort of an area like that. And I've always remembered that, because I thought, well, that really is kind of interesting. We forget about, a lot of times we forget about very small areas, which nobody's really tapping into, because they're looking at the bigger area that everybody else is in. But you can take that very small pool. There was I don't know if you remember, Dave, years ago, quite a long time ago, there was a member of the group, she was a lesbian lady, and she used to come into us and say, don't forget, the LGBT plus group. I mean, it's very big today, but it's different than probably a long time ago. But don't forget that group, because you've got all these little groups. You can just take a group and then focus on that and probably do incredibly well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You'd be surprised how many people, especially if you're using the internet, is in those little micro niche.
Yeah. Or even a certain area where you live, or a certain area anywhere, really. But that's just an idea. I just always remembered that and thought that was such a good thing. And I just saw it in again when this is going back a long time ago, when I built the website for my wife. My wife's a psychotherapist. And as soon as the websites was available, I started building the site. But then she was specialized in all sorts of areas. Now, if one of the areas she's also, aside from a psychotherapist, she's a logotherapist. A logotherapist is basically certified by the Viktor Frankl Institute. Viktor Frankl was the guy that wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And there's a whole branch of therapy that Frankl wrote about, which is very, very, very interesting. Anyway, she was always fascinated with that, and she was always taught and used that in her therapy practice. So once we incorporated that and put that in the website, not everybody's searching for a logotherapist, but when they do, she's one of the ones to cover. Now she's sort of semi-retired, so we've taken all that down, but it's just another example of how you can have a specialized area and put that on the website, and then it would draw in all sorts of traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Now, Karen, let's look at Francesco and Jane.
Okay. To make sure I'm not muted. So what we kind of we put those two together because they both talked about sales. And so what we really pulled from that is you must have a system, one niche, which is very important, and make it all about them, not about you. What you want to know about them, how they feel in their circumstances, and you just try to understand them. So I think that's all I have. You have anything further?
That's a good summary. That's a really good summary. I won't add anything else to that. Maggie and Andrea. So they're basically social media, right? So these guys are very active on social media and they're doing very well. Andrea hasn't spent a dime in terms of marketing, but she's doing extremely well with what she does. But Maggie wants you to produce good quality content that matches what you do as a business, and Andrea wants you to post it everywhere. And that's really the bottom line behind these two ladies that focus on social media. Karen, you want to
Yeah,
continue with that?
well, what's interesting about that is that Maggie was more quality over quantity, and Andrea was quantity, just put it everywhere.
Mhm.
So, you always have two trains of thought.
Right. Andrea is quality as well, but she
Oh, no,
just wanted to make
I
sure
don't
that
mean that
you
she's,
post it everywhere.
yeah, I don't mean that, I did not mean to say that she's not.
Mhm.
Can I just say something quick about the marketing and sales side?
Sure.
I can't even tell you how many times I come to events and I hear people talking about marketing sales, creating sales cycles, creating marketing funnels. That is step 4 of the process. And startups who skip steps 1, 2, and 3, which is the experimentation and discovery of how to determine your target market, your local market, and your sales approach. When you skip all that, it's like you said, Dave, you're throwing darts in the air and hoping you hit a niche. There's a big difference between understanding how the market is going to respond to your service and correlation to how you want to offer your service.
Mhm.
So this gentleman here, Cliff, mentioned a very good point, how when his wife put on there the specific thing of how she offers her service, people responded positively to it. So I see this all the time, and almost 99% of the startups I work with, they can't figure out their marketing and sales strategy because they fail to perform experimentation in the early stages. Unless you're doing that, you're going to be in a desperate state going forward, because you can see there's different styles. In some cases, quality is more important than quantity. In some cases, quantity is more important than quality. It depends on the type of business you operate and how your market responds. You need to have a process for experimentation, and don't think you're going to get results in a month. Don't. Marketing and sales is one of the few gray areas of business. It takes a long time. You have to be consistent and dedicated to seeing some sort of outcome. Pay attention to the numbers, build an advisory board of people that know what they're doing. You can get unbiased feedback from these people, but be willing to experiment. You're going to learn not only a lot about the market, but you're going to learn a tremendous amount about you, yourself, and the service that you offer to your customers.
Yeah, that's well said, Matt. Well
Yeah.
said, man.
Sorry you said all that. I'd ask you to be a speaker.
Well, yes, book him for sure. Book Matt for a speaker. Lucia. No, I know Lucia is really close to you, but she gave us a checklist for speaking, and she's actually funny when she speaks. So she can create an impact when she speaks. So that's something that you want to look at. The big takeaway from her, for me, and I've heard this from some of my leaders, is make sure you rehearse what you're gonna speak about over and over. And the day of the speaking, throw away the paper or put it in your back pocket or something and do it from the heart. That way you'll be able to deliver without being reading from a teleprompt or a paper or something. And you'll hit almost all, if not all, the notes that you need to hit.
My favorite is the robotic speaking style.
Yes, take out the robot out of the speaking.
Well, to give you
Dave, you're so right about that. Yesterday, with the interview that I did in Portuguese, before the interview, I prepared a lot of things, and you know what I did? I threw away the paper because I told myself that's just going to confuse me when I'm there.
Mhm.
And I went with the flow, and it worked out really well.
Mhm.
When I replayed the video and I heard myself speaking in Portuguese, I was like, wow, I've arrived. I've arrived.
That's a good note segment in there, because you have done exactly this and it has worked well for you. So good. So that's
Yes, it
one
has.
conclusion that we can all use, right? We can all learn it as well as we can, throw it away, and speak from our heart. Yeah. And we want to go to Mark. This guy is the reset guy. Now, he said reset the things that doesn't belong to you and basically refocus on where you need to grow. Carrie, did I say that right?
Yeah, also he talked about decluttering your mind, changing the way you think about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that you do the reset. Nobody does it for you.
And this is something that they do in a short period of time. It's not most in my personal development way of life. This is something we do for life. This is not something we just do like that. We study, we try to improve, we collect the data, and we look at the data and say, what can we improve? And we do it over a period of time. They're saying they reset just like that. Right? I don't fully understand it, but that's what they do, which is pretty unique if you're able to reset just like that.
Yeah.
Right? Lawrence will be interested in the next one. Craig Colby.
Yeah,
Craig,
I missed that morning.
no, you were right in the middle of that morning. Karen, you want to go over the 5 C's that he gave us?
Yes. Be clear, your content, be concise, conversational, and clever. He says, don't read, which I'm kind of almost doing now. Be genuine, be passionate. Start with a hook and ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
That I do a lot.
And one of the other things that he said was that Matt, you're not going, are you?
No, Olive is just sent a message. She has to head out.
Oh, okay. Olive, you're leaving. All right. So we'll connect. Thanks for coming. So one of the
Bye-bye.
things he said as well was that hook or that tagline that we use need to be relevant to our business. And he was walking a lot of people through the tagline they use. He doesn't like mine, obviously. So Lawrence, maybe you want to add a little bit about that one. About your tagline.
Trying to remember what his tagline is.
He can't forget his, trust me. Because he programmed me with his.
You mean my closing line about I'm the guy to call when you absolutely positively hate doing the books?
Right. And
That's
you had
the
said
one.
something about 3 out of 5 accountants.
Well, I used to start off by saying 4 out of 5 entrepreneurs would rather have root canal than do their books. Until Craig slapped me by saying, did you actually do the research? And I said, no, I just basically asked a bunch of people, and that seemed to be the general number. But he said, oh, now he said, my faith in you is shattered because you don't have the numbers to back up your numbers. So I'll just say, so let me ask, how many people in this room are entrepreneurs? How many of you would rather have a root canal than do your books? 3, 3. Craig, Cliff said 4, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5 out of 8. So I guess I'm pretty good.
I love doing the books. I actually like that stuff. Yeah.
Well, you're crazy, but we all knew that.
Yeah, no, I think a good
But in
tagline is
terms of
very
the
important.
tagline, yes, I'm the guy to call you absolutely positively hate doing the books. I mean, this is basically that came about as Matthew was saying. You do research. You speak to people that are in your. You speak to potential. You speak not to your existing clients, but you speak to potential clients. Because I was speaking to existing clients, they're already buying. They already speak what I speak. They already talk the way I talk.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I want to speak to people that could be my clients that aren't my clients, why they would want to hire a bookkeeper or an accountant. And I listen to what they say.
Right. Also, you
Craig
want
is,
to make
the question I ask, I said, does doing your books turn you into a giant green rage-filled monster?
Yeah.
That came from a conversation I had with Craig.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't actually say those words, but what he started saying was, I don't like me on bookkeeping day. My wife doesn't like me on bookkeeping day. Nobody likes me on bookkeeping day. And that reminded me of the original TV series with the Incredible Hulk when Bill Bixby said to somebody, don't make me angry. You won't like me when I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when I was kicking that around with somebody else, they also said, sounds like the Incredible Hulk.
So the thing that I think is relevant there is the fact that you can put everything that you say is associated with your business in one way or another, right?
Yeah.
You're not wasting words. So that's important. A lot of times people will ramble on what they do, and there is a lot of wasted space there that they're saying nothing but words are coming out of their mouth.
Well,
I also think you say a tagline usually at the end of your pitch, and you say it every single time. I say mine every single time. And I was in some meeting, we were talking about this this taglines, and I said, I say it so often that if I was a rock star and I held the microphone out and I said, picture this photo books are, the 400,000 people that were at that concert would say whimsical, casual, formal, and always uniquely you. And I found that out because I did a wedding expo. I participated in that. And one of the things that they did was they asked us for videos, and, you know, like a 1 minute video. And they played 3 or 4 together and then did some other things and then 3 or 4 again. And they said, pay attention because we're going to ask a question, and the one who answers the question correctly first on the chat will win a prize. The only one that they remembered the most was whimsical, casual, formal, always uniquely you. It was unbelievable, really. And
Yeah, that's good.
so it's important. I think, you know,
well,
it's recognition also.
so Dave, it comes down to getting your messaging correct.
Mm.
If you don't have which is part of a mentoring coaching program, and part of this is if you don't know who you serve and how you serve them, and you can't put that into a simple statement that is in the language of your potential clients, then exactly, you fumble for words, you wander about, you don't get the you don't pique their interest. Now, also my tagline also has a call to action in it. I'm the guy to call. And I sometimes end it, as you know, in the breakout rooms where I go, I'm the guy, so what you waiting for? Call already.
True.
The best marketing advice I ever got, and I live by this, is never sell your service the first time you meet somebody. Never. This is the definition of the elevator pitch.
Yep.
Imagine you're going to your condo, going to your apartment, you go into an elevator. Hey, how's your day? To some person there. Hey, how your day? Hey, would you like to buy my product for $19.99? It's gonna make your skin feel a lot better. You don't want to hear that in an elevator pitch. You want to hear like, oh, so what do you do for a living? Oh, well, God, like so many of my friends, they struggle with dry skin. God, I do too. You know what I mean? You must struggle with dry skin. I help people with that. You know, that's a lot better than sell me a $19.99 product. Relatable messaging is the key, right? People, one of the best quotes I ever heard was Einstein. He said, if you can't explain it to me like a 5-year-old, you don't know it well enough. And that's the key to marketing. If you can't explain it in simple terms and relatable messaging, you don't know your own product and service. You don't know your market. So when I meet people, when I hear somebody say to me, you know, oh, I work with SMEs, I work with, you know, women. I'm like, you don't know your market. I'm like, I'm sorry, but that is the most broad terminology you could possibly, that to me tells me that you haven't figured it out yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I would much rather you give me a scenario, some sort of, you know, example of somebody you've worked with or helped, than tell me your actual product or service. If I'm interested and I relate to that, I'm going to say, give me your business card.
The
I'd love to
problem,
have a second chat.
the problem with too many people is, to a certain extent, and Matthew will tell you this, I'm sure, is that they're afraid to pick a niche and say, this is who I do business with. How many times have we heard somebody say, well, who do you do business with? Everybody on the planet.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
If you
all the
market to
time.
everybody, you're going to sell to nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's granted, somebody might show up and say to me, I'm not a coach, consultant, or creative, but this is my business and I like them. And, you know, it's an interesting business and I'll work with them. Great. I don't say fuck off.
Yeah.
Although I have in a couple of occasions where I really didn't want to do, a guy came to me who's an electrical contractor. Great job. Okay. Great potential client. somebody I'm not really interested in working with for a number of reasons. I've worked with plumbers and contractors before. It's not something I want to do. I'll say you need to go look for somebody who's an expert in your particular case. Go look for somebody who's an expert in your business.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
they'll know the questions to ask and they'll know the ins and the outs that I don't.
Mhm. So
I
Lawrence, this is
also-
what I want to say. Elaine leave a little bit of something that we can use for that sort of stuff. She said, look at improving 1% a day.
Yeah.
Just 1% a day.
Yeah, I read that. I
Uh,
read
which
that.
means-
I read that in what's his name's books about the Atomic Habits.
Right. So even on your speech, your tagline, if you put 1% a day on that, and we don't want to do these things, but it's really that simple. You'll get it eventually.
Can I prove that point for a second? Just out of a show of hands, does everybody do people here think that I'm a good speaker?
We know that you would be, yes.
Yeah, I know, but
I
your
was-
very first one sucked.
I was the biggest introvert you could possibly think of. I
No way.
would get panic attacks, even being in a room with another person. I wouldn't speak. I would get anxiety to the point where I would actually go to the washroom and vomit. Not even kidding. How I broke out of it, I was 17 years old. This is back when they had Skype. Remember Skype, like the first Zoom?
Mhm.
And a friend of mine said, you have to learn how to talk to people. So he invited me into this room and he was standing there beside me. He set me up in this room of back then they had speed networking. And he said, don't you dare turn on your camera. You're going to start with what he called ghost practicing. And I would just sit there and I would try to talk to somebody and I'd start to get anxiety and he'd hit the close button. He'd say, okay, you did 2 seconds better than you did yesterday. Try it again. And I would do it again. And I got to about 5 seconds. And eventually I was getting to 10 to 30 to a minute. And eventually, a couple of weeks later, I turned on my camera. Oh, then the panic attack came right back. But I had practice and I started. And after all the years of me doing this, it started with minutes, started with seconds, grew into minutes, grew into hours, grew into days. I eventually got so comfortable talking to people that now I feel weird when I don't talk to people.
Mhm.
But my point, though, is that 1% concept is real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No matter what you do, and I teach this to every entrepreneur I work with, people think business is hard. People think public speaking is hard. People think exercising and dieting is hard. The truth is, and my grandfather taught this to me, he used to say that this is how hard something is. Like looking at like a relative like bar graph. This is how hard it is. And here's where you are today. But every day you're going to practice and
Mhm.
1% a day. A day is going to come where you look back at that and say, this is easy.
Mhm.
And you just have to keep doing it. The level of difficulty doesn't change. You just get better at things.
Mhm.
Start small, start in with a comfort zone, whatever it is, but start. And that 1% really adds up.
That was a
Big
very good friend.
Yeah, yeah, I agreed. I returned the favor. I helped him build a deck one day. So
He gave you something for life, though, man.
he did. He changed who I am as a person, and I'm forever.
On that very point, when these groups started donkeys years ago, before COVID, everybody used to meet in person. And you get there, and it's a whole group of people. And if you're not used to standing up and speaking, you get people stand up, they're terrified, they splutter. I mean, I never used to speak in public at all. I was terrified of it too. And it's only coming to these meetings, you had to stand up and talk, and there's always somebody worse than you. So it's always people just blossomed. It's really funny. Yeah. Everybody had to do their 1 minute. They only had to stand up for 1 minute. And for some people, that was incredibly painful. But after a while, people just got used to it.
Dave, if you would have seen me teach a class for the very first time, you would have gone running out the window. It was awful.
It always is the first time you do it.
Yeah,
Like,
the more you do something, the easier it seems to get.
Yeah.
Everything is difficult when you don't know what to expect and how people will react. But as soon as you find out and you get used to it, it's easy. I could say to somebody, oh yeah, it's easy. And to them, it is not.
Mhm.
But one of the things I wanted to say with regard to what you said, Matt, is with the elevator pitch, I get emails from people who have been on a networking group that I was at. And they're selling me. It's hi, Karen. And then boom, they go right into the sales. I delete the email and
Oh,
that's
me
it.
too. Yeah, me too.
I have one guy that did everything in caps with exclamation points. So you felt like he was yelling at you. You would go back like this, you know, and when you would read it. And he was finally told to stop.
I've learned friendship first, business second.
Mhm.
Well,
People
you
don't
know,
listen.
it's very funny because when I first started and I was in this group, they said the question of the day was, what's your favorite movie? And I said to myself, what the heck does that have to do with business? But I answered it because everybody answered it. So I answered the question. The following week, it was something about where did you go on your last vacation? And again, I said, what is this? And then I learned and I learned. And so whenever I ask somebody, you know, to have a one-to-one, I'll always say, I'd like to learn more about you, who you are, and, you know, get to know you because it's such a, you know, so a much better way to do things.
Robin Hood, 1939 edition. In case you were wondering what my favorite movie is.
There you go. Gladiator for me.
10 Angry Men for me, 12 Angry Men. I just
If
changed those.
it comes on TV, I will stop what I'm doing and sit down and watch it.
What it is a good point, right? If anyone who's ever been in like a one-on-one with me knows the first 5-10 minutes are always friendly chat. It's just, you know, how's your day going? What have you been up to lately? You know, how are the kids? Yeah, that you start that. That's how you create that warm energy, and people feel more comfortable to speak with you.
Mhm.
They don't feel like it's a sale; they feel like it's a service. And then you break that ice. It makes things 1,000 times more. And it's not just about matter too about you helping them feel comfortable. It's also you gauging whether or not you're comfortable with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and Matt is right because I know when he spoke to Ivana the week after I think there was 35 people in the group because Ivana invited everybody that she could to come to the group because she was so excited that finally I meet someone who actually contribute to what I do. She said most people I usually give them some ideas and stuff like that. But here's a guy that's giving me idea, not just about business, but also about my family, you know? So she was impressed by that and she invited a whole bunch of people to the group that week.
Remember, I helped her kids too. She invited her two sons they wanted to learn about entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Can you have a chat?" I'm like, "Sure. Why not? Let them ask questions."
Well, one thing I learned about the networking community is that people help everybody. It blew my mind. I mean, when I started, I had a list of topics to do a book that was, you know, this big, was like the basics, birthdays, anniversaries, and, you know, vacations and that. And then it grew to a list that is so long that at this point, it's anything you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But people would say, Karen, have you thought about speaking to this group and speaking to that group? And so because of that, I also do things for people. I help because I want to give back to the community. So it's an amazing group of people.
Truly, networking does that.
Yeah.
So Katrina Horn, you spoke about her earlier, but what I want to conclude with her is that you look around the room and you say Matt was an introvert or is. I am. There's so many people that fall in that category. So if you're able to effectively communicate with them, then you got something. There's about 50% of the population that's an introvert. So if you're able to communicate with those folks, then that's obviously going to increase your business. So you might want to use your 4-step process to be able to communicate with introvert. But let's move on to Larry, the insurance guy.
Oh, was that my cue?
That's your cue.
Okay, so he was talking about I think what he said, avoiding financial disaster with your home auto insurance policy. And so basically he talked about the fact that they don't tell you everything, so you're not always protected, and it could really be life-changing. So number one, learn that you likely are not protected properly. 2, learn how you can experience your own policy audit. 3, you don't have to switch from your current insurance person. And the 3 takeaways, basically documentation, ask questions, and take photos. And that's true with so many other things, you know, they don't volunteer things. I remember my father years ago when he would make flight reservations over the phone with the airline. There was no internet at that time. And he said that he would have to ask them, you know, what is your giveaway? What is your sale this week? Do you have one? And they say, oh yeah, you know, and then they would tell him, but they did not offer it. So that's what he's talking about, and that it's really important to go over it. And I mean, I was telling the group that I was going, but Dave, that I was going to tell my son, because he bought a like a weekend vacation house. And, you know, I don't know. And I don't know that he knows if his insurance covers everything. So I think that was really an important presentation.
You're on mute.
You're muted.
I am muted. That goes beyond insurance as well, right? Because the travel guy was talking about if there's one thing wrong on your travel document, it's gonna cause a headache. And if something happens somewhere, then it's hard to change or to get you back to where you came from or something like that. So it's very important that the information is accurate. And what I do for that is double check. But double check sometimes doesn't work because it goes in and people are just, yeah, that's right. So sometimes you actually have to slow it down and even spell if you need to spell, but you have to make sure that the person write the exact information on the paper for whatever you're doing, whatever business transaction you're doing with them. So that's a key for a lot of our businesses.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's unfortunate because you go to somebody because they're the expert. So you go to them so that they can take care of it all for you. But you end up now having to learn about everything before you even speak to them on your own.
Yeah, so document, and just be wise with that. That's really the takeaway there from Larry. He said a lot, but that's really the takeaway. Anybody want to contribute here before we move into the mastermind section?
Well, if it's okay, I want to tell a quick little story. It's actually something you mentioned at the very beginning of our chat about being creative in business. A lot of startups we've worked with think that the business, you know, they got to duplicate success, right? They got to, if you're in accounting, you follow what accountants do. If you're in e-commerce, you follow what product companies do in e-commerce. And arguably, that is the worst decision you can possibly make, because people forget that entrepreneurship's all about pioneering. It's all about trailblazing. You're not going to follow down another person's pathway. You're going to be chopping through a forest, and I hope your sword is sharp, you know? But I'll give an example of how a client that we worked with many years ago. And a good example about how creativity really makes a difference in business. It's not just following the traditional norm. So there was, and I'll be quick about it. So I got a call from this gentleman, you know, and he says to me, my mom wants to start a business. Mom's 80 years old. And I said, okay, you know, he said, can you please have a chat with her and help her out? I said, no problem. I'm happy to help out mom. So we hop on a chat. What she's doing is she's hand creating little stuffed animal toys for kids. And she wants to sell these toys, and she's wondering how to get these toys into stores and how to sell them online and all this stuff. And we looked at them and they were wonderful. They were like little dragons, little unicorns, you know, kind of cool toys. So going into retail is nearly impossible when you're at that stage, right? Going into e-commerce, selling these things on Etsy, all that, you're going to lose a fortune on your fee structure. So they hired us. We took a look at these toys and we were trying to figure out a way to sell them. What we ended up doing was, and this is a creative part, we started looking at children's books. We went through a catalog of all the different types of children's books that were out there. And we started looking at the cartoons in the books. And once we found a cartoon that was similar to the types of stuffed animals she was creating, we contacted the publishers. And we offered to negotiate a deal where every time they sell a book, they're going to get a little stuffed animal toy for the kid. And you can create characters in your storytelling. Because the children, her market was 3 to 8 years old, love stuffed animals. We ended up negotiating a deal with a publisher out in Europe. And they put the books in the store and they had a little stand. And when they bought the book, the kid got the stuffed animal because the kid didn't go to the book. The kid went to the stuffed animal. And we knew that was a marketing technique. But it didn't just stop there. What ended up happening was the publisher did so well in the sales, they wanted more characters, they wanted more stuffed animals. So we negotiated a licensing deal and it just trickled from there. Next thing you know, this 80-year-old lady is running a $3.5 million a year business, completely licensed. All she had to do was come up with creative characters and send everything over to the publishing company for manufacturing.
Wow.
That's creativity. That is somebody who doesn't have any business background, no nothing, but how do I bring this to life? You can be really creative with business and how you bring things to life. You don't have to follow the traditional norms of managing a company, being the CEO. You don't have to do that. You have to be creative in ways to bring this to life. And sometimes it's not about you doing it. It's about working with others to get the job done.
Wow.
So I thought that was a good story about creativity.
It is. And I've spoken to people when I have a one-to-one. There are so many coaches and so many financial advisors that when you hear, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm a financial advisor, then you start hearing wah, 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 because you tune out after a while. It's all the same thing. But when I would do a one-to-one with somebody who, let's say, was a financial advisor, and they said something very creative, they had a very creative line. I said, you have to start with that. I said, if you start with that, people are going to listen. But if you just say, I'm a financial advisor, like everybody else, like what you just said, they're not going to listen. They won't hear a word you say.
100%.
But what I want to wrap up here is Sharon here in the group. It's funny when you have things in front of you, always you don't take action, but she kind of sees us as a unique set of people, right? And what she has done is she actually make the contact with the people in the room, and now she has something she's working out, some meat deal that she's setting up between Brazil and Trinidad, and then she has some e-cycle thing that she's setting up, and she's going crazy with all these business opportunity because she's around the business environment and she's taking action, right?
Well, the difference with Brazilian business culture and what I'm learning from you guys is a huge difference. So it's something new, something innovative, and that creativity is causing a demand. So people are interested, they're following, they're coming up, they want to know more, because I'm not using the same pitch that is being used here. I'm using your your advice. So it's every day something's happening that I cannot keep control. You know, there was a message on my phone this morning. I went on your site. There's a little course there about motivation, and I did it. So did I put a little course in there? Because and it's something free, because I believe that you need to give something to get back something, you know. And there was this little thing that I was working on, but I didn't realize that I had published it. And the guy went on, he said, I did it, but there are things missing. I want more. Can you complete it? I want to finish it. And I went on the site this morning and I said, oh my goodness, all of this creativity, there are so many things happening, and it's just me that it's a little, you know, it's exciting. I'm working on adrenaline. It's been incredible. I can say thank you to you guys. For example, yesterday, my interview, when I had gone Monday, taken my son tour for a haircut. Well, at the barber that he's used for the last 7 years. So we sat down there, and my son told him, do you know, my mom, she just launched her own site. And the guy looked at me, he said, really? What's it about? And I told him. He said, why don't we have an interview with you? Can I schedule your interview for next week, Wednesday? I said, sure, no problem. And later on in the day, he called me. He said, look, I was supposed to do an interview with this person tomorrow, but he got sick. Can you come? So honestly, the Sharon before would stop and think and say, "Oh no, it's too short time." I said, "Okay, let's roll, let's go," because I do not have anything to lose, you know. And I did the interview in Portuguese, which, wow, after I did it, I felt so relieved because I jumped over a cliff. So yeah, I'm working here with a lot of positive energy. Now, Dave, there's something that I do every night. I silence my mind because my mind is going to give me 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I give my mind one reason. I'm going to do it. It's positive, positive thinking, positive, positive, nothing negative. And when I get up the next day in the morning, there's these messages and people like, it seems to be happening more positive things over coming and coming and coming. I don't know. I do not know how to describe it. It's like an avalanche of
Mm-hmm.
positive energies.
Wow, yeah. Great. Good. Thanks for sharing that with us. I know Luz opened her mic, so I know she has something to contribute here. So go ahead, Luz.
Pardon me, I had a problems to hear very well. Could you repeat it, please?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't hear well, sorry.
Dave, she wants you to repeat.
Oh no, I think you had something you were gonna say, right?
No. I was thinking about the Matthew says.
Mhm.
I would like to know maybe he has some kind of strategy to be more creative because I am trying the company I am working and we are doing some kind difference and at working, but he's right, it's much better when you have or when you try to create creative activities. I don't know, maybe he has a system to do that because sometimes be creative is difficult because I don't know, I was thinking you can be more creative when you are alone, when you're in a relaxed place. It's a good place to start, but I don't know, maybe he has some kind of activities or maybe to get to help the people to be more creative. I only was asking
So
that, but
let's
I
do
don't
this.
know.
Let's jump in the mastermind. It may be somewhat similar to what you're thinking. Um, the mastermind is now to create a process to pick a niche.
Okay, nice.
All right. So we are all talking about get a niche, right? And most of us probably don't want to do it. Lawrence is doing it. Matt does it. Karen don't want to do it. Cliff does it. So it's like a 50-50, right? So and I guess I'll be speaking to the Lawrence and the Matt when Matt comes back. And maybe Brian, if you want to chime in as well. Oh, Brian. But what's the process to create a niche or to pick a niche?
Pick a niche.
Pick a niche, okay.
So let's start with Lawrence.
It's one that I know is underserved and in my business in terms of people that do it. Two, it's one I have an interest in. I know a lot of people that are coaches. I work with coaches. My former niche was in the event business, which has some similarities with the coaching world in some respects. I know Brian's kind of looking at it. It does. It does because there's a certain amount of coaching, consulting, the whole idea of getting deposits, and so forth and so on. Part of that is still in there. It's a very similar sales process in some respects. And it's also just something that I decided I was looking for something that was less dependent upon business cycles, although to a certain extent, coaching and consulting is still also dependent on business cycles. But definitely the event business, finding a lot of people that were professionals that took their business seriously, as opposed to being Joe the DJ and Jill the photo booth girl. The people that did it for coffee and cigarette money, that weren't willing to hire a bookkeeper or an accountant, and certainly weren't willing to listen to advice. So and you know, it may not, and you know, 3 years from now, I may decide to change to a different niche. I don't know. We'll see. Right now,
Mhm.
I'm happy with the one I've got.
But you said on the serve interesting, so that's two that we can chew on right there. So that's good help. Brian, you want to contribute something here? You're a
Sure.
coach. Lawrence is speaking to you directly as well.
So this is my first type of meeting that I'm come to this, so that's why I've been a little bit quiet for the first while. I'm not always this quiet. Um, I got into the work that I'm doing, the coaching, through my own experiences, coming to Toronto. I'm originally, I told you, from another city, trying to find a job. So I needed some support in doing that. And that's kind of got me into helping. I first needed help myself, and then I started to help other people. I was a teacher before, but then I got into leading workshops. So everything was an evolution into getting into helping people look for jobs. And then I did it with some nonprofits, and then I did it with some outplacement consulting organizations. And now I continue to do that for my own clients, but I subcontract for some other organizations. And then but then it's so, in other words, I don't know if this answers your question, but one thing leads to another based on my own experiences, what I need, and then I figure out what I need, and then I figure out how to help other people as well, what they need in their careers and in their businesses, what they need to be successful in their own workplace.
Dave, I have generally found that people in the coaching and consulting industry end up doing something in particular because it grew out of their personal life experience.
Right.
Now, other people will pick a niche or work in a niche also for a similar sort of reason. There's a lot of accountants who specialize in doing e-commerce companies now because they ended up with one or two clients and they realized that doing that bookkeeping and accounting is a specialty.
Mhm.
So they concentrated on that. Other people have done it. Sometimes they'll do it. Mainly, very few people sit down there and say, I'll tell you that if you try and pick a niche because everybody tells you can make money at it, it's probably the wrong way of doing it.
I agree.
I think some people will pick something because they have a personal interest in it, or they managed to work in that industry at some point and had fun doing it.
Hang on, Matt. Don't go away. We need to answer this question too.
And or they developed expertise.
agree.
That's where Matthew, I'm sure, is where he came into his niche.
Mhm.
I could tell you my pain story if you want. I have a good one.
Please do, but let me say, what I gather from Brian is that he collects the information on what people are looking for, and then he just basically narrow himself to fill that gap. So that's another way of going into a niche.
Customer validation, right?
Mhm.
Find the pain points.
Exactly. So
Or
Matt, come on in
But
because
Matthew, the
this
question is,
young lady can't wait to
there
hear
are
you.
millions of different kinds of pain points out there. The question is how Dave was asking, how do you decide which set of pain points from which set of people you want to address?
Mhm.
the one that you resonate with, the one that you felt, the one that you
Exactly.
figured out how to solve. Nothing else should matter. Unless you have personally dealt with it and you're passionate towards doing it. It's like you brought up a good point. People that think there's easy money in a specific area are never going to succeed long term. They'll see a short term gain, but they will crash and burn over time because they either lose, their motivation towards working on it, or they can't figure out how to actually solve it because they don't have any relatability to it.
How many AI experts were born in the past year and a half?
more, more than new babies being born, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
There is a guy in my industry who is in the midst of pivoting from what he was doing before into trying to become the AI expert guru.
Mhm.
He probably will be, but I think he's going to do more harm than good to the accounting industry.
Wow. Yeah, it's a buzzword. So So then what's the process you're saying, Matt, in terms of narrowing down to create or to pick a niche?
The only long-term successful entrepreneurs I've ever seen, and I've encountered tens of thousands, easily over 100,000 entrepreneurs now in my time. The only ones I've ever seen succeed long term are the ones who've gone through some sort of traumatic experience in their point of view. And I'll give an example on my side. So I was born and raised in business. You know, my grandfather ran 4 multinational companies. My parents were workaholics, and so I was pretty much babysat by my grandfather, and I grew up in boardrooms, multinational companies. I had 30, 40 CEO or not, sorry, board C-suite members all around me, and they were my mentors. And then I was 9 years old, and my parents decided to pursue entrepreneurship.
Mm.
Fast track a year later, lost the house. We were living in a car, my sister and I, you know, basically spooning with each other in the back on a cold winter night because we couldn't get hot. My dad would wake up every hour on the hour to turn the car engine back on just to get heat in the car. We ate rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a good year. I was the kid that went to school that didn't have any breakfast, you know, and I always asked my dad, I said, why isn't grandpa helping? You know, and we're a Dutch culture. In the Dutch culture, you're independent. You got to figure out your own lifestyle. So I saw my parents struggle, and it baffled me. I didn't understand because I saw one side of the spectrum. I saw all this success. I saw the Corvettes and the Lamborghinis and the big, you know, you're on the 70th floor in a big building versus sleeping in your car. I saw the two sides of the spectrum, and it was painful. I couldn't explain. People would always ask what my parents do, and I couldn't explain to them what they did because they really didn't do anything. They failed at entrepreneurship. They ended up going back into full-time careers, and they were very successful in their careers, but they couldn't figure out entrepreneurship. And a day came where my grandfather was talking with me. He mentored me, and he asked me. He said, "What problem do you want to solve?" And I remember asking him. I said, "What's the biggest problem?" I was the ambitious kid. I wanted to solve the biggest problem. And he's like, "Well, what do you think it is?" And I said, "Well, my parents were trying to do a healthcare startup." So I said, "Healthcare." He said, "Okay, what else?" And I said, and he's like, he asked me, he's like, "What else do you think was a problem?" I said, "Well, what about poverty? What about this? What about that?" And he said, "That's not the biggest problem out there." I said, "What is?" He said, "The startup failure rate." And I was confused for a second. He said, "You know, there are Einsteins living on farm fields. There are people that can solve those problems, but they'll never be able to do it because they can't build a business." So I grew up struggling, witnessing startup failure rates, and I dedicated my entire life, and I continue to do this, improving the startup success rates. That's my mission, that's my vision, is improving startup success rates. So I've built systems, I've collaborated people. I now collaborate with the United Nations on their sustainable development goals, all focused on improving startup success rates. And out of over 1,600 startups, we have less than a 2% failure rate because now we understand how to build successful startups. But I was the guy that slept in the back of a car on a cold winter night eating rice that wasn't even heated up. Like it was like basically still hard rice because we couldn't even we didn't have enough money for propane to heat up our rice. I was that kid growing up. So I felt that. And I never and seeing people who have kids who have to take out second mortgages on their home, who, you know, quit school, who are judged by their family, judged by their friends because they're pursuing entrepreneurship, to see them struggle hits me in the heart. They deserve to know that there is a silver lining at the end of the day. There is a golden, you know, there is some gold at the end of the rainbow, but they have to understand how to build a business. Business is its own beast. You can be the most talented person in your trade. You can have a doctorate. You can be a dedicated person. That doesn't mean you're good at business. Business is its own beast. And so we now, as my team and I, we are dedicated to teaching people how to build successful startups because we've all felt similar pains. All of my team members, I've never put up a single job posting. They're all headhunted. And the first thing I find out when I hire them in their interview process is, why are you even doing this in the first place? What's their pain? When I learn they experienced a pain like me, I want you on my team. because I know you'll never let anybody else feel that way again. You will work so hard to make sure that our clients succeed. I hope that story resonates with some people about why I do what I do.
Well,
Right.
well, yes, and you said it right there, traumatic experience, right? So that's what you use to form to basically get your niche.
Yeah.
And Lawrence had said before, underserved area, and also something interesting. So that's some really good conclusion, guys. 3 ways to narrow in that niche: underserved, something very interesting, or a traumatic experience. And you got your niche. Simple as that. What Brian had said, to basically collect the data and see what's working and stay with what's working, basically, is my conclusion from what Brian said. So that's how you get a niche. Does that make sense, Karen?
Yeah, I just feel that it's really hard for me because my books service so many different niches that that's one reason why I read my my pitch, is because I know the type of group it is, and that's the pitch that I use, whether it's corporate or it's veterans or it's just basically families, a little bit more family oriented. So it's really hard for me to pick one niche and just leave it at that.
Can I just give some advice on that?
I
Sure.
knew you was gonna give you some advice on that. I can't wait to hear this.
And I want to make it abundantly clear that what you're doing today is great. You should start with the end game. Every entrepreneur does, but we forget that our vision is always 5 years ahead of us. Helping everybody, like we said before, you're going to help nobody. So you have to start at the beginning. But when you start, it's like an explosion of creativity. You're going to get everything out of your system. So you're going to write 10 different books, right? But which one is going to sell today? And you focus on that first book, you focus on just one sale, and you'll start to discover that those people, 6 degrees of separation, they're going to start telling everybody that you exist. And that will grow into the branches of the tree. But start with the roots. Which one of these ones do I want to pick and focus on for my next 6 months? Out of all these different things, veterans or whatever, pick that one niche, say, this is going to be my area of focus. And from there, everything will sprout and grow into its eventual end vision, which is serving many people. Because yes, you can help a lot of people. I can help a lot of people in bid startups, but I don't go out there saying I work with SMEs. I go out there saying I'm going to work on agriculture-based businesses. That's it, just those people. And from there, I'll branch out into other sectors and segments. So every entrepreneur does this, every single one of them, because they're experts and they're passionate. They start with the umbrella, but they forget they got to focus on the handles. That's what gives you stability and growth in your business. So pick one, dedicate yourself to that 6-month window of this is what I'm only going to focus on selling. That will allow you to sprout back. Because remember, you're not going backwards. It's like you built the bow and arrow, but you got the handle. But you got to focus on one arrow at a time. That's how you hit your targets. So you built the bow and arrow. That's all your 10 books. But now use one arrow and hit that one target, and I guarantee you're going to start hitting more and more over time.
Matt, I gather what you're saying is like a tree. When it's growing, it has a main root that has to go deep in the soil to get the nutrients or the water or whatever it gets down there. If that root is not there, if it's a bunch of fine roots, it's not going to survive.
Going to fall over in the wind.
Exactly. It needs that main root, and that's what he's saying.
Yeah. Get that Sorry, go on. Sorry.
Can I say something? When I first heard Karen's voice, I was mesmerized. I think Karen's voice is the root for her. Whenever I hear her speak about her storytelling, I am mesmerized. Karen, I'm so in love with your voice. Let that be your root.
Wow, that's so funny that you said that, because I had said to somebody, I hate my voice. I hate my voice. I do story time with Karen where I tell stories, and I listen to it, and I say, oh my God, I sound like I'm dead. You know, I sound this, I sound that. And the next day I got an email or a text from somebody who said, your voice is so amazing. I can listen to it for hours. And I started to laugh because I had just said how much I hate my voice.
It's actually
And
like therapy.
wow. Sharon, thank you so much.
There you
Wow.
go. Well, isn't that what a niche is, Matt? You never know, right? But when you put it out there, there's people that flocks to it that you don't expect to come to it.
That's it. It's not, people think that marketing is about the audience, but they often forget that it's about the offering. And the offering, and there's different approaches to it. It's the authenticity of just being an individual and how you speak and how you resonate with a group of individuals. It could be your presentation, it could be something specific, but something as simple as a beautiful voice, that in and of itself is an offering.
Yes.
And I agree 100% own that.
Matthew, as you were talking, though, I was hearing your story, and thank you for sharing about growing up and everything. But I was kept on thinking about Jim Carrey, because his background was kind of similar. He had to live in a car, in the back of a car for a while, and I guess your roots could have taken you either to the world you're in now, or you could have become a comedian in that way.
I don't have that gift. I can't put myself on his level. He's one of the all-time greats.
But it's funny. I mean, your backgrounds are similar. Just how one went one way, one went the other way.
But still success.
Yes.
It's a battle. Is the reason I got my gray hair. All right, it's I come out with a couple battles on my side to get that win.
At
But if
least
you
you
want,
have, but Brian and I have nothing.
well, if you want, I'll share one more story about that. If you want, we
Please
the,
do.
the clients we work with, like we're in the position now where we do get to pick and choose who we work with, and that is fortunate. Like it took us 17 years, you know, and all of our stuff to get to that point. But when we work with clients, we want to understand their trauma, their pain points. And there was this couple, a bit of a sad story, but it has a good ending, I promise. So lovely couple, okay, in their late 30s. And they come to me and they say that they want to make an ice cream shop. And I'm like, an ice cream shop. I'm like, first of all, it's the middle of winter, you know. But then they started telling us this story that they just lost their daughter, 7 years old, to cancer. And she was obsessed with ice cream. And this was a high school teacher, the husband, and a at-home local artist, you know, the mom, like she was painting and stuff. No background in running a storefront, no background in anything. And they say to me, they're like, what's it going to take? So I told them, I said, realistically, you're going to have to learn how to run this kind of restaurant. You have to have a background in engineering, because they wanted to make custom in shop ice cream, like they make it on the spot. So they did. 2 years later, they contact us back and they say they got their degree in 2 years. They just powered through. They were doing multiple semesters at a time. They got their degrees, and they're like, okay, we're ready. So we worked with them. We helped them get a storefront. It was actually here on the Lakeshore in the Greater Toronto area. And the concept of it was you would walk in, and you would basically have this like vanilla style ice cream everywhere, but you could pick and choose your flavors. They wanted to tailor it to children. Children can come in and say, I want the Batman flavor, I want the Superman, I want the Hulk. And it was like these different flavored ice creams, and it created this kind of experience. And the entire store was dedicated to their daughter. There was a plaque, there was a picture of her on the wall, that even the name of the store was Morella's. Fast track several years later, now they got 7 storefronts. And this was a couple with no business background, never considered business in their lives. They were traumatized at the death of their child. And they were so determined to see their child's dream come to life that they quit their jobs, went back to school, figured out business, worked 2, 3 jobs in the background to raise money to be able to afford a restaurant. And they did it. You know, and that's, to me, is when I run into people like that who have a real good reason for building a business, there is no stopping those people. They'll figure it out. They just need communities like this, people that will come in and help them and support them and guide them on their journeys. But those types of people, those trauma-driven people,
Mhm.
you will never stop those people.
Wow. That's a good way to end this meeting, man. It really is. Man, we have gotten so much information today, and at least we should know how to get into a niche. So if you're not in one, get one.
You're not in your niche, think about your why again, and why your why started. That's the lesson I learned. Why my why started, and that's your trauma. That's your pain point. And then once you figure that out, who is the person who's feeling that pain? That's your niche. Then you can resonate with those people. You don't have to sell, you have to relate, and you'll never sell again. You'll only serve at that point.
Serve, serve, serve.